Hi everybody, it's Adam, the geneticist from Verdure Healthcare, and welcome to my 5th episode on the genes that can make your baby sick. So today we're going to talk about chromosome 3 and the 1,500 genes it contains. So as you might recall, previously we have talked about chromosome 1 and chromosome 2. You might now realize that it is getting increasingly smaller. And if you do think so, then you're absolutely correct, because chromosome 1 is the largest chromosome on our body, the second chromosome is the second largest chromosome on our body, and guess what? The third chromosome is the third largest chromosome in our body. Yes. So as you might remember, this picture, it should be familiar to you by now. So this is actually the entire set of chromosomes that we humans should have. 23 pairs, and the last chromosome should determine whether you are a guy or a lady. Right, so chromosome 3 actually makes up 7% of our DNA. And if you forgot, just in case, what's the relationship between chromosomes and DNA? So, in our body, there are hundreds and thousands of cells. Okay, the skin cells, the cells in our body, our muscle tissues, they are all the cells. But within there is a command center called the nucleus. Within the nucleus, we have chromosomes. The first slide I showed you, all the 23 pairs of chromosomes are being contained into the nucleus. So imagine a chromosome like a ball of string. If you untie that, you'll be able to see the DNA within the chromosome. So chromosome and DNA are the same thing, except when you're using these terms, be careful because you are describing them at a different level. So if you want to see the basics and if you want to revise, I'll strongly suggest you to go back to the introductory video. The links are included in the description below. So please do spend about 15 to 20 minutes to have a look at them. Right, so this is chromosome 3. And what's with all of these? So these are the positions and markings on the chromosome. Each and every number determines the position on chromosome 3. So it is very complicated, so you don't have to remember them. All you need to do is just be aware that there is such a method to map the chromosomes. Okay, and by the way, chromosome 3 is responsible for our sense of smell and the inflammatory process. But the diseases it can cause can often be very different compared to the main functions. So over here, I've listed out a number of diseases, which I'm going to briefly tell you about them. And if you want to go into more details, please feel free to go on Google or any other search engines to specifically search for these diseases. And just a little bit of a reminder before we head deeper, there are two kinds of genetic diseases. One would be single gene disorders and the other one would be chromosomal abnormalities. What's the difference between them? Have a pause here, let's tickle your memory. Okay, have you thought of any differences? Okay, single gene disorders means that if you pull out the DNA from the chromosome, so you can see the DNA pieces, it's called the nucleotides. But if there are certain pieces of DNA, there is a mutation in them. For example, a duplication. Okay, for example, this piece over here, the red piece over here, gets duplicated, or gets deleted, or gets substituted by a yellow one, for example, then there will be a problem. Okay, so this is called single gene disorders. Chromosomal abnormalities means that the entire chromosome, the whole piece, is either duplicated, so there's an extra piece like Down syndrome, which means on the 21st pair of chromosome there is an extra piece, or there is a deletion, of the entire chromosome. For example, the Turner syndrome, whereby for ladies you should have two X chromosomes, but you only have one. That's called the deletion syndrome on the chromosomes. Right, so the first disease we're going to talk about on chromosome 3 will be the 3p deletion syndrome. Now, let me give you a little test. 3p deletion. Judging by the name, what kind of a genetic disease is this? Is it a single gene disorder? Is it a chromosomal abnormality? Right, let me tell you the answer. It is a single gene disorder. So as you might recall, 3p is actually a position on chromosome 3. So this position, this little piece over here gets deleted, it means missing. So what is it going to cause? It's going to cause intellectual disability, motor skill developmental delays, unusual facial features. Okay, so these are some more common ones. The less common ones would be maybe deformed ears, congenital heart disease, some renal, meaning the kidneys, gastrointestinal malformations, autisms, and tumors even sometimes. These might be benign tumors, or some even within benign tumors there can be cancers. So these are some of the more common symptoms if you get 3p deletion syndrome. So let's move on to the next one, 3q29 microdeletion syndrome. So as you might already know by now, microdeletion, if you hear the word deletion, it means something is missing. Okay, micro is a little bit of pieces being missing. So if you can see, let me share with you how to read the mapping on chromosomes. 3q, as we mentioned, that will be the chromosome number 3 chromosome. On the 29th position, that's how you can read it in the more layman terms. So this is a very small piece. Just now it is the entire 3q that's been missing, but now it's just 3q29. That's very specific. Okay, that's been missing, and what can it cause? Okay, it can of course cause some developmental delays as well, but it can also affect the baby's capability to sit up, to walk, to talk, sometimes even very frequent ear and respiratory infections. And the most common and significant symptom would be the small head size. And by that, I don't just mean a little bit smaller, I mean significantly smaller, all right? Okay, now, if you can have a read at the name, you pretty much spot that it is still 3q29, okay? Nothing has changed from the position. But this time, it is the microduplication. So, judging by the word, what sort of disease is this? Okay? Is it single gene or is it chromosomal abnormality? Okay, it is still a single gene disorder. But now, what's the difference between this one and the last one? This one actually signifies a duplication, which means an extra copy of the gene at this particular position. Right? So there is a huge difference because it is exactly the opposite compared to the last disease. Right, so it will still affect your learning capability. It will have some cardiac problems. It will affect the vision, and these are more common kind of symptoms that it can cause. Right, now this is getting interesting. Clear cell renal carcinoma. If you see the word renal, it has got something to do with your kidneys. So yes, it is a kind of cancer, and it is also being embedded, meaning hidden in the chromosome 3. If you get this kind of a mutation, then it will significantly increase your risk of getting the clear cell renal carcinoma. Okay, and I believe I don't have to introduce this disease, lung cancer. Everyone has heard of lung cancer, and it is one of the most common killers in our country. So, according to Cancer Research Malaysia, they produce a journal of thoracic oncology. So in Malaysia, the lifetime risk of getting lung cancer would be 1 in every 55 Malaysian adults. That's not too little, right? And of course, this is due to the mutation in the gene. It's not like you smoke too much, you have inhale too many chemicals. No, this is due to a mutation. So that's why we need to get ourselves genetically tested to see what's the risk of us developing cancer as well. Right, and then now, trisomy 3q2. So what kind of genetic disease is this? Can anybody answer me? Write that down in the description box first, okay? But in the meanwhile, let me give you some time to think about it while I tell you more about this disease. So some infants, they have been affected by this trisomy 3q2. They have very low intelligence. I'm really sorry to say this, but they have really low intelligence. All the characteristics in their body would look very different. They might even have cracked lips. They might even have a very small head. And yeah, this is called the craniofacial area. So they might have a very small surface area on this. Yeah, and that's why they have a very distinctive facial feature. Right, so yes, in summary, for this particular disease, developmental delays and mental retardation are the two most significant symptoms. But anyway, let me tell you about the nature of this disease. Trisomy, when you hear this word trisomy, it will definitely be related to the chromosomal abnormalities. It means that on the 3q2, there is an extra piece over here that has been duplicated. Not the entire chromosome 3, just this piece. Yes, that can happen. Right. Von Hippel-Lindau syndrome. Okay, even I have some problem pronouncing that. Anyway, so yeah, I'm not sure if you have seen anybody with skin tumors all over their body. Okay, these people are really, really poor. Pity them. And so, yeah, this disease means that there are tumors growing all over the body, particularly in the brain, in the spinal cord, in the inner ear, adrenal glands, the pancreas, the kidneys, and even the reproductive tract. So all of these tumors are usually benign, but sometimes it can cause cancer as well. Okay, so if you see next time anybody with tumors all over the body, you know that pretty much there will be a high chance of them getting von Hippel-Lindau syndrome. Right, so speaking of all the genetic diseases, what are their cures? So many people ask me these questions. Okay, honestly speaking, there aren't much genetic therapies currently available. So some genetic diseases might be cured by maybe doing a gene therapy to replace some of those mutated genes, or maybe to replace the entire organ, for example, the lung transplant, kidney transplant, something like that. But there are certain organs that cannot be transplanted, such as your skin, okay, at least not the entire piece. So yeah, if anybody in your family particularly has any kind of genetic diseases, you should be really, really aware of that being passed on to you. Even though you might not be the person who's affected, you will be something called a carrier, a disease carrier. Right, so how do you see if you are a carrier of any kind of genetic test? Of any genetic diseases? It is via genetic tests. Right, so at Verdure Healthcare, we have something called the pre-pregnancy DNA screening. If you've heard of my videos before, this is another name for this kind of test is called the carrier genetic test. Except at Verdure, we have combined the chromosome lineup, which means that we can see your entire makeup of your chromosomes, on top of getting your carrier genetics screened. Anyway, let me break that down a little bit for you. But first of all, why do we need to get ourselves screened before we conceive or have children? Okay, according to the Chicago School of Medicine, every humans would carry at least 1 to 2 lethal recessive mutations on average. And let's have a look at this article. So humans carry on average 1 to 2 mutations that, if inherited from both parents, they can cause severe genetic disorders or death before reaching reproductive age. Now, the reproductive age over here is not 18 years old, it's 15 years old, because the scientific reproductive age is different from the legal reproductive age. So at around 15 years old, we can already make somebody pregnant or can actually be conceived. Right. So that, yeah, it sounds scary, but let me tell you, in our human body, we have 3.1 billion pieces of DNA. That's a lot. And if I were to tell you that, okay, there is no mistake, each and every one of us are perfect, do you believe it? You probably won't. So there are still certain imperfections. So first of all, with the Verdure pre-pregnancy DNA screening, on the first part, we, like I mentioned before, will screen for all of your chromosomes. So what we are looking for in here is, for example, deletion. Is there a big piece being missing, or a big piece that has been duplicated, inverted, or substitute, for example, or even translocated. And translocation, it can be within the same pair of chromosome. For example, chromosome 3, there is a swap around, okay, because we have 2 chromosomes, information can be swapped around. You, as an individual, would not get any effects because you don't have more or less genetic information. But imagine this, because our body will automatically chop our information, genetic information, into half and pass that on to our sperm cells or egg cells, and in turn, we will pass that information on to our next generation. So imagine this, if you have a translocated chromosome 3, for example, and that has been marked into some, not all, some of your sperm cells and egg cells, and if you pass that on coincidentally, the mutated one, and then combine that with the normal copy from your partner, imagine what's going to happen. That particular offspring is going to get either more or less genetic information. So if you have any abnormalities involving the large piece of chromosomes, then we will strongly suggest you to go for IVF after our treatment to boost your body condition first, boost your reproductive health, then we'll send you off to IVF centers, and then when we make the embryos, we will do the screening. It's called the pre-implantation genetic screening. So, right, and for the second part, okay, don't be surprised by this particular picture. I'm not going to go through the details. So part 2 is very complicated because it involves the single genes. So just now, as you by now already understood, chromosomes are, on its own, and then if you move into it, you'll be able to see the genes in there. So in order to line up the genes which is in the chromosome, it's a very hectic process, okay, as you can briefly see. Okay, so for the second part, we will check for Asia's most common 155 genetic diseases, such as these: beta thalassemia, Smith-Lemli-Opitz syndrome, Wilson diseases. Okay, so but even within these diseases, there are different versions as well. So how many versions do we have when we combine all 155 diseases together? Let me tell you, it's 9,000 variants. 9,000 variants on the 155 Asia's most common disease. Right, so if let's say, for example, if the mother is a carrier of some sort of diseases, for example, beta thalassemia, and if dad is also a carrier of beta thalassemia, there will be a 25% chance that this child would be getting beta thalassemia. And then 50% chance of the baby being a carrier just like mom and dad. There will only be a quarter chance, meaning the remaining 25% chance that the baby would escape this genetic disease boundary completely. Okay? So as you can see, how come sometimes when you see a child being affected by some sort of genetic disease, their parents are okay? I mean, if the parents have been affected, they would have known already. Okay, anyway, all of these genetic tests reports had to be reviewed by a professional. Now, currently in the market, no doubt there isn't many clinics that are offering genetic tests. As far as I know in Malaysia, as of today, there are less than 5 genetic counselors or geneticists that can offer genetic tests in Malaysia, counting me, okay? All right, so but what kind of qualifications do you need? Why is it so difficult? Why are geneticists so rare? Okay, so let me tell you a bit of my background. I have a postgraduate certificate in surgery, okay, and I'm qualified as a surgical instructor. So I'm qualified to teach people how to do surgery, at least the basics of it. But do you think that's enough for me to speak about genetics? No, absolutely not. If you want to speak about genetics, you have to get extra qualifications, such as this one I've got from Stanford University School of Medicine, their signature Stanford Genetics and Genomics Certificate of Achievement. But since in Malaysia we don't have a very stringent regulation on what qualifications you need in order to offer genetic tests, we, Verdure Healthcare, follow the US standard, and the US standard is getting more and more strict every time, so we have to even get a step further, and I have gotten their genetic testing and sequencing technology certificate. That's not it, along with Johns Hopkins University's genomic data science. So once I gather all these genetic data for you, I'll be able to do analysis, and I'll be able to do the risk assessment for you and plan out what are the best next steps so that you can save more money, you can get pregnant faster, and you get less painful, you wouldn't get any painful experiences within the process. Okay, so this is our mission as well. Anyway, okay, some of my clients ask me, Adam, okay, you are offering this kind of carrier genetic test or, okay, whatever you name it, okay, but what is the difference between that and the clinical genetic test versus the commercial genetic test? So we, Verdure Healthcare, what we are offering would be the clinical genetic test, because these tests would be used to make a formal medical decision or solution afterwards. But a commercial genetic test such as 23andMe, Circle DNA, like all the advertisements you see on YouTube, they are more for your health and wellness. So you're more than welcome, and if you really want to understand yourself a bit more, then you should get one of their tests to see what kind of food should you eat, what kind of exercise is the best for you. I'm sure at one or more points in your life you'd say, no, I'm exercising this much, why am I not thinning down or losing weight? Maybe you're not doing the correct exercise. Maybe your genetic makeup isn't suitable for that particular exercise, and that's why there isn't any effect on you. So do get one of those commercial genetic tests for your general health. But if you want to get pregnant, we have to do clinical genetic tests, such as the Verdure pre-pregnancy DNA screening, because we are taking samples from your blood. Okay, these commercial genetic tests, they are taking samples from the saliva. Okay, so there is a huge difference between here. And now we are using something called the next generation sequencing technology to help you line up all your genes to check if you are a carrier of certain diseases. We can even check now up to 84 cancer genes that can cause over 200 kinds of cancer. Right, so after you've got yourself tested genetically, the next step would be to enhance the quality of your sperms and egg cells. So especially when you want to get natural pregnancy, and especially if you're not carrying any kind of genetic diseases, then I would strongly suggest you to try to get pregnant naturally without having to do IVF. Okay, so no matter which way you go for, whether it's IVF or natural pregnancy, we do have fertility supplements aiming to help you enhance this health. So our supplements has won the Reader's Choice Award from Baby Talk Mama Papa magazine on this year, 2021. So the supplements that we have include the VHC Formula Female 1, which enhances the ovulation function, the egg quality, and VHC Formula Female Formula 2 would be to enhance the endometrium to reduce the risk of miscarriage. And VHC Formula Male is, of course, to enhance the male sperms in terms of the quality and quantity. And we even have a confinement supplement, meaning to say that after you give birth to the baby, you need to recover from it, and then our confinement 1 and 2 would help you to do exactly just that. Okay, and also I would like to use this opportunity to thank everyone for your kind support to Verdure Healthcare, because this year it came as a total surprise to us that we've won the Super Brand Malaysia's Choice Award. And as far as I know, that this particular award is known as the Oscar Award within the business world. So without your support, without your trust, we'll never be able to achieve this milestone. So over here, I would like to represent myself and also the entire company to thank you. Okay, so after enhancing the eggs and sperm cell quality, the third step would be to decide whether or not you are suitable for natural pregnancy or IVF. Okay, so if it is for natural pregnancy, so what are the criteria? Okay, so hopefully that you and your partner won't be carrying any kind of genetic diseases. That's the most straightaway criteria to get pregnant naturally. But just in case, if one of you have are carrying some sort of genetic mutations, but your partner doesn't, then it is still fine. The worst case would be the baby would be a carrier of certain kind of genetic disease, just like one of you. Anyway, so if you want to get pregnant naturally, we have our home artificial insemination IUI, which is just at the 1/50th price of IVF, whereby you do IUI at home. So first of all, you just need to follow 3 very simple steps. Firstly, we will help you to chart, okay, we will teach you, how to chart your menstrual cycles. And the thing that we are looking for in here is your ovulation, whereby if you are ovulating, there will be a slight bump on the temperature because of one of the hormone called the luteinizing hormone, LH, has been secreted in your body, and hence it will heat up your body temperature just a little bit, okay. So when you have been tracking this for 1 or 2 menstrual cycles already, then at certain dates, then you should use something called the LH ovulation test kit to predict and also to confirm ovulation. Okay. By the way, we import all of these from the UK, so they are of extreme high quality. So anyway, on the third step, which is to use our baby maker kit, there are certain components which can help transport the sperm cells directly into the uterus. So all you need to do on using this particular equipment is just to assemble the equipment and then to pick up the sperm samples and inject them directly into the uterus. That's how easy it is, right? Okay, and so this particular equipment is suitable for people who has got low sperm count, poor sperm motility, meaning the swimming capability is poor or abnormal shape. But of course, that's why we have the VHC formula male to help your male partner enhance the sperm quality. And in turn, that will significantly increase the chance of conception. So for ladies with high amounts of antibodies that can kill sperm cells, if you're suffering from recurrent genital infections or even pain during intercourse, then this home artificial insemination IUI is for you. Right, but in case if you and also your partner are carrying the same disease, for example, spinal muscular dystrophy, okay, so not dystrophy, atrophy, sorry. So then you need PGS-PGD. So in this case, we have to do IVF. We have to send you off to IVF centers after you've enhanced your quality of sperms and egg cells. But some of you might ask, Adam, why can't we just go straight away to IVF and do this PGS-PGD? Okay, let me introduce you to PGS-PGD first. So during an IVF cycle, you see a doctor. When you set the treatment, you get stimulation medicine to stimulate the ovaries to grow. And when the time comes, you will need to go back to the hospital to take your eggs. And afterwards, they will fertilize it with your husband's sperm. And then they would be placing this embryo into the incubator for around 5 to 6 days. So after 5 to 6 days, they will take a small piece, let me quote that, small piece to do the screening, to do the genetic screening. So in this process, they will need to take, parts from your embryo. In that case, some of you might be asking, okay, Adam, is that going to kill my baby? Well, I wouldn't use the word kill, but it will somehow affect the growth of the embryo. Okay, so that's why not everybody likes this particular kind of method. And then secondly, money is really the problem. So if you go to Google and search the cost of PGD and PGS in Malaysia, it can easily bring up your cost of the entire IVF cycle to around 35 to 55,000, depends on how many embryos you have for them to screen. So yes, just to sum that up, if you and your partner do carry some form of genetic diseases or mutations that can potentially cause your baby to be affected, then we can actually send you to one of our panel partners, including TMC Fertility Center, Alpha Fertility Centers, Sunway, Thompson. We do have these major partners in the market working with us. We are also, by the way, a partner of BP and PathLab. We've been working with them for over 10 years. And the two genetic screening labs that we have worked for many years already is called Genomics Lab and the DNA Lab. Right, so on the very last note, here's the thing I want you to take away. Baby's lifetime health. And because genetic cures are still very immature, so prevention is definitely better than cure, okay? And if you're planning for a pregnancy, please do give us a call. We would love to hear from you. Let us plan out the best fertility solution for you. Call our hotline. And this video, after the premiere session today, will be uploaded to YouTube. So just go to YouTube and search our channel, Genetic Disorders, Chromosome 3 or Chromosome 2, Chromosome 1, okay? And then you'll be able to see our previous videos. So do like our channel, share our video, and I hope you are taking a number of knowledge from this video. And I'll see you next time for the topic on chromosome. Guess what? Number 4. See you. Have a nice day.